Hey YouTube, my name's Luke, also known as Mr. Fathead Online. Today I'm going to do a quick video on how to plug in basically any controller you want into your Nintendo Switch using a couple of adapters. The whole thing is mainly based on these two adapters, the cronusmax and the Magic NS, which you have to plug into your computer. And the trick to this setup is that you can use your computer to plug any normal adapter in that you want and bind the keys any way that you think would be cool and use them on your Nintendo Switch. So the first thing you have to do is plug in the cronusmax into your computer using the side port, not the front port, the micro USB, and then open the cronusmax software as an admin. Then you have to click plugins and open Xaim. This is the part of the software we're going to use to bind all our controls to the Nintendo Switch. Next, you need to plug in your Magic NS into the cronusmax and then plug that into the Nintendo Switch. I have used a small USB extension cable so that I don't have to lay the dock on its side, but you can lay the dock on its side, it doesn't hurt anything. That is essentially the most complicated part of the setup, and with these basics you can set up any controller you want with the Nintendo Switch, even your keyboard and mouse, or a Nintendo 64 controller, whatever you have adapters for at this point. I'll just do a quick example on how to set up a Nintendo 64 controller and the keyboard and mouse, because every other controller follows the same steps, so there's no point in doing anything other than that. So the first thing I'm going to do is quickly bind some keys to my keyboard and mouse. I've selected the Xbox 360 layout because it matches the Switch controls perfectly. I'm going to bind W, A, S, and D to the left joystick. And all you have to do this is just right-click on any of the buttons you want to bind, and click keystroke, and then press the button you want to bind it to. Next, I'm going to bind my mouse to the right joystick, and that's pretty easy, but you're going to have to fiddle with some sliders to make it feel right in the game. And this varies per mouse, so you can't really copy my settings, but you can just play with the sliders until it feels good. It might take 10 or 15 minutes, but it's pretty easy. And then you have mouse and keyboard in Switch games. Now that the keyboard and mouse have been done, I'm going to do a Nintendo 64 controller using an adapter. All you have to do is plug in the adapter, and then go direct input and enable direct input, and then select which controller you want to use. At this point, you just have to right-click a button and click direct input catch, and then just press a button on the controller and it'll bind it to that key. You can use the more option in the menu to bind several things to one button at the same time. So what I'm going to do is leave all the keyboard settings that I did earlier alone and bind the Nintendo 64 settings using this menu. That way I can use the keyboard and the Nintendo 64 controller at the same time, which lets you do some pretty cool stuff. Alright, now that all the explanation is over, I thought I'd do a couple of quick examples. So this first one is Splatoon 2, just using the keyboard and mouse. This is actually using the exact settings I did in this video. It's not quite perfect, I need to fiddle with the sliders a bit, but you're limited to the speed you can turn around in the game based on the joystick speed, and I have them at max. And you'll see just coming up here, I do an example of how fast you can move, and it's nowhere near as fast as the motion controls. See, that is max speed right there. But still cool, pretty interesting. Next up is Blaster Master Zero. It's just the demo. I'm just showing how it's all plugged in. You plug the adapters into the computer, not into your Nintendo. Sorry about that noise, I dropped my tripod. I don't own this game, but it seems pretty fun. It does have a lot of cutscenes in it, but from what I've played so far, which is about 5 minutes, it resembles the NES version. You don't have enough buttons on the NES controller to fully map out this whole game, but It's good enough for this first screen as an example. It feels exactly like an NES game. I can't feel any input lag. I don't think the adapters add very much, if any. And last up, just an example of Mario Kart using the Nintendo 64 controller. I didn't set this up 100% in the video, but this game only has like 3 or 4 buttons. It's pretty simple. It actually works really well on the Nintendo 64 controller. It's almost like it was designed for it. And I heard a lot of people say the Nintendo 64 controller looks uncomfortable, but it's pretty comfortable other than the stiff stick. The solid plastic. It can dig into your thumb after a while, but other than that, it's a very good controller. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope this answered anyone's questions on how to do it. Stay tuned for the next video.